Risk of Rain 2 is quite the package. I think it stands out compared to other games since it tries to be unique no matter what you pick based on the characters, the modes, the artifacts, and whatever worlds you may stumble upon. Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelike third-person shooter where the main objective of the game is to kill enemies, gather items, and start the teleporter. You do this for at least 6 stages depending on how you play your run. If you wanted to, you could beat the game immediately at stage 6, or you could loop back to the first world and play the run even more. It's just a harder version after every loop. That's the basic gist of the game, but it goes a lot more in depth than that. First off, let's talk about the classes. Currently there are 11 classes in Risk of Rain 2. 12 if you count the heretic that you can unlock in the middle of a run. Every single class is unique in their own way, which is one of the many reasons why this game thrives off of replay value. The Commando is your basic run and gunner, the Huntress uses auto-aim to quickly pick off enemies, the A-Crit is a poison-based melee class, the Loader uses momentum as a way to deal the most damage, Rex heals itself whenever it deals damage to enemies and also damages itself for more useful attacks, the Captain uses a powerful shotgun and can also use orbital strikes. You get the idea. Every single class is unique. And the great thing about this is that it's not unique in a bad way. There are no bad classes in Risk of Rain 2. Let me say that again. There are no bad classes in Risk of Rain 2. It's really hard to make a game where every single class is good or feels unique, but Risk of Rain 2 pulls it off perfectly. Every time you unlock a new class, you might find yourself confused on how exactly this character should be played. And that's the beauty of all these classes. You try to learn how to properly play them, and once you do, you'll thrive and win the game. And the game rewards you for it once you beat the game on the hardest difficulty by giving you an alternate skin. I, of course, have managed to unlock all of them. So fuck you, a British potato, for thinking that the multi is shit. You're just bad at the game as multi. Now feast your eyes on the multi-drip.
Mask on, fuck it, mask on.
Next, I'll talk about the gameplay itself. Like I said before, the basic objective of Risk of Rain 2 is to kill enemies, gain items, and start the teleporter. Now, while that is repetitive, I think that's the point. A game being repetitive is not always a bad thing as long as the gameplay itself is good. I'm happy to say that you might be surprised what this game has to offer. Although, even though I think this game is good, I will say that this game is not for everybody. It is a roguelike after all. If you die, you start all over again. It's as simple as that, so I can see why not everyone will enjoy it. Putting that aside, however, how you play your runs in Risk of Rain 2 is all up to you. The game has no limits when it comes to how long the game will be lasting or how powerful you become. Gathering items is a core part of this game. What these items will do is boost the stats of your character. One will give you faster attack speed, one will make you run faster, one will give you an extra use of your secondary ability, one will make all your attacks explosive, one of them will let you revive yourself after you die, one will make you deal more damage if you're in close range, gain attack speed when using your equipment, siphon enemy health when nearby, inflict bleed on hit, deal bonus damage to bosses, gain back 1 HP on hit, heal outside of combat, stun enemies on hit, block damage, reduce cooldowns on all abilities, gain an extra use on your equipment. You get the idea. Items help you grow stronger. The more items you have, the better. However, you also have to take into consideration on what items you want based on what class you play as. Doing this is much more simple when you have the artifact of command, which I will talk about later. But depending on your class, one item is better than another. For example, the Loader deals a lot of damage on both its base attack and its shift ability, so by using items such as the Crowbar and the Focus Crystal, you will boost that damage even more. But you also have to take into consideration that the faster you move as a Loader, the more damage you do. So energy drinks are also a good item for the Loader. Goat Hoofs work too, but energy drinks are based off of sprint, and the Loader is all about sprinting, so energy drinks are more useful. Another example is the Captain. Captain's shift ability is the Orbital Strike, which is very useful for high amounts of damage. So a good item for the Captain would be the Bandolier, which gives you a chance to drop an ammo pack when you kill an enemy so that you can reuse this ability quicker. Items are crazy at times, because there's pretty much no limit to how many you can carry, which can make your character insanely overpowered. Want to exploit Somarangs? Have 20 energy drinks and 26 fuel cells, and you'll have thousands of Somarangs follow you wherever you go. Want to fire 10,000 rounds per minute as Commando? Stock up on syringes, and maybe add in a little extra brilliant behemoths to make a rapid-fire bazooka. Want to make the entire stage rain in fireworks? Stock up on bundles of fireworks and watch as your frame rate absolutely tanks. Something you have to keep in mind is that Risk of Rain 2 does not give a fuck about your frame rate. If there are so many things happening at once on screen and a lot of entities around, I can guarantee you that your frame rate will drop to the 20s or less. I love this factor in the game. It's super chaotic whenever stuff like this happens, so it makes me appreciate the game even more. Moving along, however, Risk of Rain 2 has different worlds for each stage, so every time you do a run, you may end up in a different world. This is another reason why the game thrives off of replay value, and to add the cherry on top, Risk of Rain 2 has hidden realms. There are 6 hidden realms, and the first one I'll talk about is the Bazaar Between Time. The Bazaar Between Time is a secret shop in the game where a weird newt thingy will let you choose items available. On the right of the newt, there's these blue items that cost lunar coins. These are called Lunar Items. Basically what these items are is that most of them will give you a giant boost in stats, but will also penalize you. For example, the Shaped Glass is an item that will double your damage but cut your max health in half. The Transcendence turns all of your health into shields. The Defiant Gouge will make enemies spawn on any shrine you use instead of just combat shrines. The Focus Conversions will make the teleporter event go by quicker, but the radius of the teleporter charge will go smaller. You get the idea. Lunar items are a double-edged sword, so don't use them unless you know what you're doing. The next hidden realm is below the Bazaar Between Time, where you will find the secret Null Portal. This takes you to the Void Fields, where you activate 9 Void Cells and survive waves of enemies. Each cell completed gives you an item, and the final one gives you a legendary item. Completing the Void Fields is also how you unlock one of the characters. The next hidden realm is where you find one of these golden shrines and pay for it. This will unlock a golden portal after the teleporter event, where you will find the Gilded Coast. In there, you will activate 7 shrines, which is the key to defeat the boss inside called Aurelianite. If you defeat Aurelianite, you get the Halcyon Seed item, which lets Aurelianite become your companion. The next hidden realm is called A Moment Fractured. By looping back to stage 1 and going through the Celestial Portal on the 3rd stage, you will sacrifice yourself out of existence and the game will end. Obliterating yourself will also unlock the Mercenary character. The other hidden realm is called A Moment Whole. Using the same way to get there, you must obliterate yourself from existence, but you also have to have the Beads of Fealty item. Doing this will take you to an alternate final boss before the game ends. The last hidden realm is the Bulwark's Ambry. This is where you unlock artifacts. By using different patterns at the secret portal in Sky Meadow, you'll open a portal to this hidden realm. Overall, the hidden realms are a good way to keep you coming back and playing, because by going to these places, your runs will drastically change how you play. Before I talk about the final boss, I'd also like to comment on the AI. It's pretty smart. It seems as though almost all of the enemies will predict your movement so that they can get a chance to hit you. Stone Titans are a good example of this. They have different attacks that predict your movement. Next, I'll talk about the final boss. The final stage is called Commencement, where you must activate 4 pillars before fighting Mithrix, the King of Nothing. The final boss in Risk of Rain 2 is great. Mithrix has a total of 4 phases, which is quite a ride. The first phase may seem hard, and the second phase is when he summons minions, but the third phase is when Mithrix gives it his all and wants you dead. And his final phase? He takes all of your items. Mithrix is a really good challenge. The fact he has 4 phases make it seem like this boss fight will never end, and it feels good when you get the chance to defeat him. After defeating Mithrix, you must speedrun your way back to the ship, or else you will die to the moon exploding. Completing the game is how you unlock the Captain. Also, depending on what class you play as, you get different quotes in the ending cutscene. This also includes if you play multiplayer and you die, but your ally beats the game. Just a nice touch. Beating this game is one hell of an accomplishment, especially when you unlock every mastery skin for the characters. But god damn, I hate the Shrines of Chance. They never work out for me. But now, let's do it again, but this time with artifacts. Artifacts are Risk of Rain 2's game modifiers. Every single one of these will change how the game will be played. There are 12 artifacts, and I'll go ahead and list them all and what they do in quick succession. Take a shot every time I say artifact. Side note, you might not live. The Artifact of Kin will spawn only one type of monster in each stage. The Artifact of Chaos enables friendly fire for both players and monsters. The Artifact of Swarms will double the amount of monsters but will cut their health in half. And this also affects the Mithrix fight, where you will have the challenge to fight 2 Mithrixes at once, which is absolutely cursed. The Artifact of Dissonance will spawn monsters that normally don't spawn on particular stages. The Artifact of Metamorphosis gives you a random character every stage. The Artifact of Death is a test of your teamwork because with this artifact enabled, if you die, everyone dies. The artifact of Soul spawns wisps every time a monster dies. The artifact of Frailty will make it so that fall damage can kill you. The artifact of Honor turns all monsters into elites. The artifact of Glass decreases your max health down to 10%, but gives you 500% bonus damage. The artifact of Evolution gives monsters items for each stage, making them harder to kill. The artifact of Command lets you choose your items rather than getting a random one. The artifact of Enigma gives you a random equipment every time you use it. The artifact of Sacrifice removes item chests and instead gives you a chance to get items when you kill a monster. The artifact of Vengeance makes you fight your evil clone every 10 minutes. And the artifact of Spite makes killed enemies drops explosives. Every artifact changes how you play the game drastically, so this is another way to keep you coming back and playing. It's like a bunch of new challenges that can be stacked into another if you wanted to. Overall, Risk of Rain 2's gameplay is great. If all of this isn't enough for you, there are also alternate abilities for all the classes that you can unlock by completing achievements. I've been achievement hunting for this game and I'm almost at 100%. That said, the gameplay does have one major issue. If you decide to play on multiplayer, you may notice that there's a lot of lag that can potentially happen. This is because Risk of Rain 2 uses peer-to-peer connection, so if you decide to join someone's server, don't be surprised if you experience hit delays or lag, or if the host quits the game and shuts down the server, or vice versa if you're the host. Next I'll talk about the art style. In Risk of Rain 1, the art style was an 8-bit side-scroller, and then in Risk of Rain 2, it transitioned to a 3D cartoon-esque third-person shooter. The art style is pretty great as well, especially when you look at the character and monster designs. Every single class is easily recognizable, and every monster feels different, which is really good for selling the fact that you're in alien territory. And since the graphics are not that demanding, you don't need high-end specs for running it. The game will run good on at least a GTX 580 or AMD HD 7870. The performance is great overall. You can get a constant 120 FPS so long as the game isn't going chaotic on you. Otherwise, yeah, the frame rate will tank. I am using a GTX 1070 and I only had the game crash on me once, and that's only because the game would keep spawning in dozens of bosses that would instantly die and turn into ghosts. And as you can guess, that tanks the frame rate a lot. And if for some reason the base graphics are too much for your computer, there are a bunch of settings that will help you out to make the game run better. The main thing that could affect your frame rate is the amount of corpses that can remain on the world, so keep that in mind. Next I'll talk about the music. If you're a fan of songs from Dream Theater or Prince, you're right at home. Risk of Rain 2's soundtrack is one of the best things I've heard in a while. I never felt that any music was out of place when I heard it in specific worlds. They seem to fit perfectly for the atmosphere of each world. A good example of this is Rally Point Delta. On Rally Point Delta, the song that plays is called Into the Doldrums. While it doesn't scream ice level, it does match the tone of the stage, since in the lore of Risk of Rain 2, Rally Point Delta was a base for members of the UES Contact Light to gather up in, but they couldn't since they were overrun by monsters. You can tell that the music was made for correlating with the worlds in Risk of Rain 2. And Chris Christodoulou did an amazing job with the soundtrack. I haven't heard one bad or mediocre song off of it. Every track feels like a masterpiece, and on top of that, fits into the game very well. My favorite track in the game is the one that plays in Commencement. The slow escalation from the piano to heavy metal is what really sold it for me. It fits because of the context of why Mithrix is here, and the way the stage is built. Chris himself said in a YouTube comment that it was a back and forth situation with how this music would work out. He would take a look at the level concept of Commencement, and then he would make the music. Chris nailed it with this track overall. Earlier I said that the music fits into the stage because of the context of the situation. Well, that's because this game has lore within it. Risk of Rain 2 is not a story-based game, kind of like Life is Strange or The Last of Us. Risk of Rain 2 focuses on gameplay the most, and the story is the cherry on top. The most story you get out of the gameplay is the intro and the outro, but all of the story can be seen in the logbooks in the main menu. There's some very interesting stuff going on in it. Although, as you may have guessed, this is a sequel, so if you dug into this game's lore without playing the first game, you may end up confused. I'll try to summarize Risk of Rain's lore pretty quick. Basically, it all began with two brothers, Mithrix and Providence. Providence was the final boss in the first game, and Mithrix is the final boss in Risk of Rain 2. Providence was obsessed with soul, while Mithrix was obsessed with design. Together, these two brothers would create things. Mithrix created the Lunar Chimera, but Providence had a problem with this because the Lunar Chimera had no soul. Then Mithrix would tell Providence to create Aurelianite. Mithrix designed him, and Providence created him, but when Providence did that, he put in a lot of soul. Mithrix didn't like that, and so he locked Aurelianite away into the Gilded Coast. Soon, Providence would betray Mithrix, trapping him on the moon, which is where you fight him in the game. This leads up to the events of Risk of Rain 1 and then 2. I'm not going to dig too deep into the lore itself, but if you want a really good in-depth analysis on Risk of Rain's lore, I will put a link in the description to the Grove Tenders video explaining Risk of Rain's lore. It's some very interesting stuff. Overall, Risk of Rain 2 is a great game. I highly recommend it if you're into roguelikes or third-person shooters. The game gives you a wide variety of options on how you play the game, most of which you have to unlock, so that it makes sure you keep coming back and playing. As of the making of this review, the developers at Hopu Games are working on a DLC for Risk of Rain 2 called Survivors of the Void. So far, they revealed 2 new survivors, revealed new enemies, they teased a bunch of new items, and they also revealed a new mode called the Simulacrum, which is like a horde mode but better. I'm very excited for this DLC. However, there's one more thing that I have to talk about for this game before I end the review. The mods. The mods in this game are absolutely insane. You got everything from quality of life improvements, new enemies, new music, new classes, new modes, more skins, more difficulties, and if you're a degenerate, you can play with NSFW versions of the characters. Side note, please don't. Want to play as Goku from Dragon Ball in Risk of Rain 2? There's a mod for that. Maybe you missed the Chef, Miner, Enforcer, Handy, and Sniper from Risk of Rain 1. There's mods for that. Want to cheat? There's a mod for that. Maybe you're a dickless nerd and you want to play as League of Legends characters. Risk of Rain 2 has that as well. Even something as dumb as Phoenix Wright was added into the game's mods. One of my favorite mods gives you the Executioner. It's a pretty well designed custom class with a great set of abilities. Hey look, 2B is in Risk of Rain 2 now. She exists as a skin for the Mercenary. I think the modding in this game is great as well. If you want to mod this game, I'll put a link in the description to Wooly's video on how to install R2 Modman. So yeah, Risk of Rain 2 is a certified hood classic. I highly recommend that you give this game a try. I almost have 200 hours in this game alone and I enjoyed every single bit of playtime. The gameplay is great, the art style is great, the music is amazing, the performance is great, the lore is very interesting, and the mods are fucking insane. The game thrives off of replay value, and I don't think I'm going to stop playing this game anytime soon. I'm giving Risk of Rain 2 a 10 out of 10. Besides the servers potentially having lag depending on the host, I really have no problems with this game. I'm very excited for the DLC as well, so now I have something to look forward to. Thank you for watching, be sure to subscribe because I need clout.